Hi, I'm Fredric Abramson, and I am the founder and chairman of Fresh Start Science. And Fresh Start Science was created as a nonprofit last year in 2010 to help disadvantaged young single mothers find a path to a better life for themselves and their child. For the last 50, 60 years, we've known that many disadvantaged young women become pregnant and have children. And while we all agree that there are good reasons why it would be better if they didn't have children, the reality is that this is what happens. In fact, in the United States last year, roughly 40% of all the children born were born to single mothers. And among the 15 to 24-year-old set, over 1 million single 15 to 24-year-old women had children last year in the United States. So it's a significant problem that we face. Now, clearly, not every woman who's single who has a child is economically disadvantaged. Many of them have good jobs, and this is a choice they've made. But on the other hand, we know many other young women who are socially disadvantaged, coming out of economic conditions that are not very good. They have a child for a lot of complex reasons, but the end result is that their life, in effect, comes to a stop. They tend not to get an education, even completing high school. They tend not to have the kind of jobs that are worthwhile. They have more difficulty in raising their children, among other reasons, because economically they don't have the means. Their children are more likely to have an engagement with the criminal justice system, and the problems are pretty significant. Now, over the last 40 to 50 years, there are lots of programs that have been started by public service groups, nonprofits, even the government, to help these young women deal with this situation and get them out of poverty, get them into the mainstream. Unfortunately, for the most part, they don't succeed. And one of the reasons is that the life situation of these young women is such that they can't make the mental transition to identify themselves as someone of value, someone of worth, someone who can do things. So I created Fresh Start Science to bring a new technology to the table, in effect to revolutionize the way we address this issue, and that is to use genetic analysis, DNA, to look at heredity and let this young woman learn what her parents gave her in her heredity that shapes her everyday normal life. Now, the genetics of everyday life is not medical genetics. It's not about disease or cancer or heart disease or Alzheimer's. It's called wellness genetics. And what wellness genetics does is it tells you how your DNA contributes to your athleticism, your creativity, your behavior, your personality, your ability to control weight, sex. Everything that you are today starts with your DNA blueprint, your DNA map. And of course, it's always a combination of your DNA and your environment. Nothing is purely genetic and nothing is purely environmental in the sense of the everyday traits that we exhibit. So for a general rule, the inherited or genetic input into what we are is roughly 30 to 70% for anything we're looking at. So wellness genetics is the good stuff. It's the things that make us tick. And more important, it's information that everyone knows we're born with. Suppose you were going to sit down and play cards, and the person who's the dealer said, you can play, but you're not allowed to look at your cards, but everybody else can. Would you want to sit down and play cards under that situation? Well, odds are you probably wouldn't, because you're at a disadvantage. Suppose they said, you can look at your cards, but nobody else can. Would you want to play? Well, odds are you'd say yes, because now you have an advantage, because you know the cards in your hand, they don't, so you know how to bet. Suppose they said, you can play, but nobody gets to look at the cards. We deal the cards, and we all bet, and then we turn the cards over, and we see who's got the best hand. Well, you probably wouldn't want to play, but here's what's strange. That's the game of life. Because every one of us is dealt a hand when we're born. And until now, until really the 21st century, we didn't have the ability to look at the hand we were dealt with. But now you can. Now you can look at your wellness genetics hand and identify what genetics is contributing to your life right now.